Good morning and welcome to the Leadership and Insurance podcast. I'm normally your host, Alex Bond, but I'm actually swapping seats out today. I'm going to introduce one of my wonderful team, but I'll let her introduce herself. Rebekah, welcome to my hot podcast, which you are going to hijack and take over, I believe.
Very exciting, slightly nervous moment for me to now be the host of the Leadership and Insurance podcast. So
Uh,
let's see how this roller coaster goes. Might be my first and last. We'll see. Hopefully not.
yeah,
Um, so
I hope not.
so I'm the director of operations here at FinPro. I've worked in the insurtech market for about 3 to 4 years now. And I've been with you guys at FinPro for about 6 months. Really taking a deep dive into recruitment. Flown by.
Amazing, amazing. I actually didn't know it had been that long. Shows you. Well, actually, it feels like it's been like no time, and then like you've always been here, because everything's changed so much. But anyway, I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to sit and ask some questions. I'm going to really struggle with this, I think, but let's see how we get on.
So the last 6 months, I've really heard quite a lot of conversations between you and the team with clients and candidates. And there's been some consistent themes that I've been really hearing about kind of hiring and growing businesses. And in this episode, I'd really like us to focus in on those, really help hiring managers and those in the C-suite, really understand some of those topics in a bit more detail because you're having these great one-to-one conversations. And we just thought a good opportunity for us to kind of spread the insight in a bit wider into this podcast. So I'm going to start with the hardest question because I always feel like that's a good point to start with. um, so, the question everyone wants the answer to, what is the magic sauce? Why are some businesses more successful than others? Why some businesses able to innovate and grow sustainably and others aren't?
Um, from a hiring perspective, um,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many ways to answer this question. I mean, I'm just going to shoot from the hip on this because when we work with businesses, there's always a very clear personality of that business. Um, and I think the ones that are successful know what that personality is. And I'm not saying it's always very dangerous when they say, people have a team fit because people should be additive to a team. It shouldn't be that they just amalgamate into this mass of one consensus. But there should be some common values. And I think the businesses that I see do well all seem to sort of pull in the same direction in terms of ambition and kind of culture. And I think let's boil this down to the businesses that we work with. We work with startups and scale up insurtech businesses. So they're by nature innovative, and by nature they're usually quite early. And so it's a different type of business that's successful at that stage than at a big corporate level. Because to be honest, I'm probably not well placed to say how a corporate runs well. The corporate businesses I've worked at, I haven't fit I haven't fit in very well. So I think I'm the wrong person. And I think that kind of is part of the answer because, you know, early businesses are a cult of personality. And whether that's like the founder led or just the founding team led, there does have to be something special about that culture that makes it successful. But I think that thing that kind of really sets them apart is is being aware of what that culture is and what that personality is, and getting people that either add to that and complement to that, or that do sit within that. Because I think the friction in early stage businesses is when those people don't fit into that team, and therefore they don't pull in the same direction. Um, you can look at some really successful businesses in the insurtech space. Like we're big fans of the team at Hyper Exponential, and yes, they've raised a lot of capital to do well, but it's a byproduct of they've just got an excellent team over there. You meet the team and they're all different, but you can tell that there's a culture and a shared value set that's there. Other good friends of the podcast is like Superseed. It's a smaller business, they've not raised as much money, but again, being very, very successful because that team is just complementary of each other. And I don't want to call them cult-like because that kind of has negative connotations, but I think there is just a shared value, shared direction, and everyone seems to know the direction they're going. So I think really it's getting that team right, and that team culture right, but also kind of having that clarity of direction. I think that's what makes people successful.
So let's say you're early stage business, you're looking to hire, and potentially you're looking for more kind of pure SaaS talent across the market. We saw in our 2024 salary survey that there are some challenges around hiring that pure SaaS talent now. There's a lot more competition for that talent. Maybe industries with bigger pockets, like fintech, pure fintech, or maybe industries with more kind of, I guess, overt appealing missions like climate tech or health tech. So how do, especially these early stage businesses with maybe not a lot of kind of brand, years of brand behind them, how do they go about attracting that talent?
Um, Great question. Um, it's difficult. I think accepting that it's hard is step one. And we know that from our own experience, right? We've been trying to hire for a while, and it's been very, very difficult. So I think accept it's difficult. And I'm amazed how many decks I see, investor decks, and I'm lucky to see quite a few of them with our VC partners and some of the angel investing that I've done. Everyone has, oh, we need these hires, but no part of the plan is how we're going to go about them. So I think having a plan of action, saying, right, it's going to be difficult. We've got these pockets of talent that we can go after, or these are the ones we need. So first thing to do is proactively address that issue. You need to proactively go after talent. So where is the talent that you need? Is it in InsurTech already? Is it in adjacent businesses? And then saying, right, what are the additional talent pools you can go after if you're unsuccessful? So let's say that you need a software developer that ideally has experience within InsurTech. Well, how important is that InsurTech knowledge? If it's kind of additive but not essential, where are your additional relevant pockets of talent you can go into? And you can apply that for anything. You can apply that to SaaS salespeople. Do we need the InsurTech experience? Do we need the knowledge of selling into carriers or brokers? Well, if it's a yes, then you've got a very narrow pool. If you say that it doesn't have to be that, can you expand outside of that? You might say, for example, in software social, you might say, if someone's done selling into the insurance industry, and we teach them to sell software. So it's one, knowing what your pockets of talent are, and second, it's knowing what your alternatives are, because you might have to go to alternative pools. If it's a case of just a straight dogfight for talent, and what I mean by that is that you have a very narrow band of talent that you have to hire, um, you have to get really good at telling stories. And this is why founders tend to be quite good at hiring on their own. And actually, sometimes where they struggle is as these businesses grow, you're leaning on your team that you've hired. So, you've come in to run ops. You've got to expand your team over time. Are you as good at attracting talent to work for FinPro as perhaps I am? Because I might be better at telling the story. Um, you Everyone has to get very good at telling stories. I talk about this all the time when we're talking about recruitment. Recruitment is one-to-one storytelling. You can use one-to-many tools, mass mail outs, you can use LinkedIn, you can use things like podcasting. But most of the time when we're doing what we do, senior level search or going after that niche talent, with having phone conversations with people. And every phone conversation is me telling a story of a business that we're working for. And you have to get good at that storytelling. And then you have to break down what makes a good story. We need a beginning, middle, and an end. Probably not an end because you hope to grow a business. So maybe it's
Absolutely not.
beginning, middle, and a direction. And I think that's good storytelling. Where does the business come from? And being really feeling it. And when you tell a good story, you have to have detail. So it's like, where was the genesis of the business idea? Who are the founders? What is their background? Where's the funding come from? What's the need for this hire right now? Where does this hire fit within the wider business? Where does this hire grow into? What's this person going to do once they've been there year one, year two? That's a good story. And that's how you win. you're always going to lose people that kind of want to work in climate tech or health tech. But then also kind of identifying what is the story that we're telling in insurance, because I think what we do when we talk about talent attraction to we talk about attracting talent to insurance or insure tech. Well, as a business owner, you don't have to worry about that. Make your story personal. It's about you. It's about your business, and just become a good storyteller.
And I guess that's why FinPro, we really focus on those candidate briefing decks that we create when we're working with, retained clients to really make sure we're
Mm.
telling the story accurately and consistently. So they're hearing it from us verbally. We're also sending it to them, and it's really kind of building on that story that they then hear directly from the founders or the hiring managers when they speak to them. It's all consistent in terms of the
Yeah,
story. So,
and
um,
sorry, just
yeah,
sorry, just jumping on to something, Rebecca, because this has occurred to me, and I'm a big horror film nerd. You know this about. I don't know if you do know this about me, but I've actually got a tattoo of a film festival on my ankle, which I used to run. I used to help run this thing called Fright Fest. The thing that's scary about horror films is not what you see. It's what you get scared of what you don't see. That's why sound is so important to horror. Sound's so effective, and it's the absence of things that tend to be really, really frightening. And the reason I'm jumping in at this storytelling bit is this candidate briefing deck is a really important point. People are very scared of talking about runway and ARR because I mean sometimes it's sensitive, but you have to give people that you're trying to attract to your business as much information as possible because people will fill in the blanks if you don't give them information. So that's where the fear creeps in. So, for example, there's no point not talking about your funding. It's going to be a question that's asked. If you nip it in the bud, if there's even if there's negative press about you, if there's negative press about the insurtech industry, proactively tackle that. So we proactively tackle that all the time. Funding has gone down in insurtech. Well, what does that mean? On an individual level, it doesn't mean anything because if a business is well funded, it's well funded. It may just mean other businesses are not able to get funding. So, yeah, I'm extrapolating my point, but it's like people fill in the banks and they'll be scared of the things you don't tell them. So, as much information as you can share with them is important. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt that.
I guess no, and I guess it's particularly important, especially if you're, brave enough to do a kind of cross industry hire, because they may not be, if you are brave enough to do that, the insurance industry is quite risk averse to that. But we're quite, advocates of that. We think there's a lot of, especially for senior hires, there's a lot of merit in bringing innovation and thought and diversity of thought from another industry. But I guess that's also where it becomes really important. I mean, I guess in terms of when you are trying to bring kind of cross industry talent and kind of showcase them to a client, what are you hearing about resistance around that? What are the main concerns?
I think we oversell how complicated insurance is. I think that's the big concern, and that's natural because people want to be proud of what they do, and people want to be proud about the industry that they work in. Um, One of the ways of being proud of that is the kind of, oh, you couldn't possibly understand, it's very complicated. It's the people want it to be complicated. I think this is obviously just my opinion, but I think people like things to be complicated, and that goes for any industry. Insurance is not unique in. Um, there are some roles which are inherently you need to be an absolute insurance expert in. If you're growing your surety underwriting team and your number two leaves, you probably need a pretty experienced surety underwriter to join your business. That's fair enough. I think where I'm surprised we get resistance is in things like centralized functions, operations, um, HR, technology, engineering, sales is another one. Um, if you're a good SaaS salesperson, or your first thing is you break down what the tool does, or the platform does, or the software does. Um, you can switch between those. Like insurance is just another industry you have to get your head around, but you only have to know where you plug into that business. Um, So I think we just overcomplicate things, and I think the concern is, oh, that oh, you won't understand, that it will take too long for someone to onboard. I think that's usually the biggest fear is the speed to ramp up. But I think what that says to me, and that is consistently the biggest kind of concern, we're not very good at onboarding people effectively because it's lazy and easy to onboard someone that knows how to do the job, how to do it in your sector. And we have this problem ourselves. You know, we're bringing people in that maybe Callum's just joined us. He's a wonderful member of our team. He's been with us 10 weeks, got 5 years working in the recruitment industry into technology businesses. He's just never done it into technology businesses that operate in insurance. Well, 10 weeks in, I can tell you he pretty much understands insurance very, very well. I was having quite an in-depth conversation about retrocession with him yesterday, so he's definitely kind of on board pretty quickly. He's a smart guy, and I think, but we've put the effort into onboarding correctly. He's sat and trained with me. He's worked with me closely. We've gone over things in detail, and I think I do understand when you're an early stage business, you might not have as much time, um, but then you're just limiting your options. And I think yeah, I do understand that ramp up thing, but I think in more established business, it's just laziness and your onboarding process isn't good enough. Um, and in smaller businesses, maybe it's just an unrealistic expectation about how quickly anyone ramps. So yeah, that's the pushback we hear is just kind of speed to effectiveness. It's that return on investment, how quickly we're going to get it. But I think if you prepare correctly and you put the training together, you can ramp people up pretty fast.
And I remember when I joined InsurTech, I think the first 2 days, I went home after the first 2 days and I sat in front of my kids and I was like, well, I know the word the and and in, but actually very quickly, once you figure out the acronyms and you figure out the context within which people are talking, it's not actually as difficult and as murky a world as it seems. It's actually super interesting, and I've become a massive advocate for the world of insurance as a consequence. But there was that kind of moment in the first 2 days where I was like, no one told me it was a foreign language,
Mm.
but
Well,
actually it's quite quickly.
yeah, and especially when we're quite unusual in that because we're consultants across the broadest sense of insurance. So we're a research firm that operates in the US and the UK, and we do senior level hires, but across multiple disciplines. So we're working on cyber, on construction, on CRO role, a CUO role, which is the nature of a search business. So we actually have to have quite a broad lens of insurance. Most people come in and work within a relatively narrow piece of it. So even if you're selling software and you say, right, we're selling it to carriers, you only need to know what that software does for that carrier. And therefore, who is it relevant to? What part of the value chain is it in? It's very unusual. You have to know insurance or reinsurance. Like you only need to know your section. So again, I think we just overbake how important it is because actually you break it down and say, right, this tool is relevant to these people in these types of businesses. That's your buyer persona, and then actually everything else is superfluous, really. So yeah, we just over it.
So thinking more about roles that already exist and kind of rehiring for those roles. I know you recently posted on LinkedIn a great article that got a lot of traction. Um, how companies can really take that moment to innovate the role and really think about what that role really means within their organization. Can you talk a little bit more about
Yeah, it was really that was a really interesting conversation. I mean, I wasn't given any prep ahead of time, which I would say don't do that to someone because they literally doorstepped me and said, "How do we rebuild our entire innovation function?" But it was a centralized role. It was actually an innovation, a head of innovation role. And what I don't think we do enough is that so this person was working their notice, so that person will be 3 months notice because it's a traditional insurance business. Um, you've got some time there to really take that opportunity to say, right, do we replace like for like, or is there a different way of doing this? Is there a better way of doing this? Is an alternative to what we're doing? And I think you should do that for two reasons. One, because replacing like for like's usually pretty hard. You're sort of saying we've lost this person that we really valued. We now need to replace them. Um, if you're trying to place like for like, that narrows down the the talent. If you're not thinking about how you could do it in an alternative way, you're automatically kind of narrowing down your field of vision for an opportunity for different talent to come in. So talking about different industries, head of innovation, let's say if tech's included in that innovation, this wasn't, this was actually underwriting specific, but let's say it was including tech. Well, the most innovative tech people probably aren't necessarily just in insurance. So could you pull someone from, even making an easy leap to banking or something like that? Um, but the other missed opportunity is particularly relevant for something like DE&I is to say, look, how can we do this differently? Does it need to be the most senior role? Could it be, could we bring someone with less experience in and develop them in this? Could we bring two people in for the same budget that are kind of more junior and then develop them into this? There's so many avenues that you could go down. And I think particularly when I think about things like DE&I, if we're not taking the time every time someone leaves to say, do we need to replace this person like for like, or can we do it in a different way? Um, is it better for the business to do it in a different way? There's all these questions you should ask before you just go out and say, right, we need to replace this person. Because every time someone leaves, and we're very resistant it's a very UK thing actually, because we work UK and US. US people obviously leave and they don't have notice to give. It's employment at will. Quite often there's a maximum, there's a sort of 2 week, even quite often it's a sort of handshake deal, but technically people can kind of resign and then they can start their new job like the next week. Um, so people are much less set when people leave. Like resigning and people moving on is not seen as a negative. In the UK, it's seen as this huge like loss to the business. It's almost like an insult. It's almost like um yeah, it's just has a different lens. But that stops us kind of looking at it in a potentially positive way. You shouldn't have people with you that don't sort of evolve. And quite often when I see someone's been in the same business for 10 years, it's not necessarily a good thing for either them or the business because you're not bringing in new ideas, you're not bringing in kind of innovation from outside. And so, yeah, I think every time someone leaves, it's an opportunity for the business. And I don't think we ask enough for those kind of what, when, how questions that we could do.
So I think both of us are old enough to remember the pre-fruit baskets and table tennis era of working, and then we have both lived through that era,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
I feel to a degree is coming to an end to some
hmm
degree, and over focus on that. Um, you know, I guess what really does make people stay, or opposite, what makes them leave now? Is it with cost of living crisis, with uncertainty in the economy? Is it still fruit baskets and table tennis? Is it hard cash? What is it that's making people stay or leave?
Um, I never talk about money. Like when when I'm recruiting, I never do. And look, I have to put that through the lens of we work with specifically senior level people, and I think once you get to a certain level of income within reason, people are sort of it's that's why I don't want to underplay cost of living and the impact on people's lives and making decisions because obviously people do make decisions based on money, but I think when we're working with more senior people, it's not about that. It's about mission. It's about challenges. It's about doing something that matters. So yeah, no one at the strategic senior end is generally focused on the money. I'm not saying they don't move for money, but that tends to be not on the table. Certainly, no one cares about the fruit baskets and table tennis. Or if you're going to do that, you've got to go all in. You've got to be like, right, we're going to pay for your travel to come into the office if you have to come in. We're going to provide food, like all of your food for you. We're going to pay for your gym. Like, I think you either do it full bore to say, we cover everything for you, or you don't. But you know, you and I both went to see an office the other day, which had a gym and all that sort of stuff, and it was great. And then they had Donut Wednesday, I think it was, and I was thinking, does this make anyone stay? Like it's like sweet, but when you think this is also pointless, just make the office cheaper and I'll buy my own donuts. And I think that applies to kind of when people kind of come to your business. I remember, in our industry for a long time, there's lots of kind of like summer like incentive trips to Ibiza. Like just if I do well in recruitment, I'll earn good money. I'll take myself to Ibiza, thanks. And I think some of these things are just baked into the culture of startups is stupid offices with silly things like PlayStations and nobody plays on them. It's because it culturally you're supposed to be working hard. So those things don't matter. Values matter, culture matters. We were talking about stories. People join for the story, and the story is about the team, it's about the culture, it's about the mission. You need a good team, a good culture, and a good mission. And if you can keep offering people those, then and that will keep evolving, then people will stay with you. But much like my point about someone spending 10 years with the business, you can stay 10 years with the business. In fact, we've just secured someone a head of insurance role, and that person was with their business for a long time, like over 10 years. Every couple of years, 3 years, they had a completely different job. So this person might as well have worked for like seven different businesses, but they hadn't. They just moved, challenged, and so that's your challenge. I think as an employer is like, how do you consistently challenge your people? Can you give them different things to do? And then obviously maintaining that high performance culture, challenging culture. I think people come to work to be challenged. The best people, there's no point talking about the people that you know because when we talk about, oh, some people just turn up for a paycheck, some people just turn up and just put in the bare minimum. You don't want to hire those people, so who cares what they want? Quite frankly, um, your high performance people want to be challenged. They want to learn. They want to do new things. So your role, I think, as a business leader or as a potential employer is just that how do you keep cranking up the challenges? And part of that is being brave and giving people new opportunities. So just because you're my director, and you're excellent at it, and I will say that loudly to anyone that will listen. But I've also seen you be an absolute networking weapon when we've gone out and then we've been at these conferences. And part of the thing is my mind. It's like, well, does Rebekah want to run uh, when we're big enough? Do you want to be chief commercial officer? Do you want to drive like the business development end of the business? Because actually, it's an operation, it's run well. You might want that challenge. Now, I'm not putting that on you on this podcast, but it's thinking
Everyone
like
said
that.
making the job offer, Alex.
Yeah, yeah, but I made that concrete job offer. But it's I think it's thinking like that, and then I think the follow-on thing that gets missed because I think people do think like that, but then they don't have open conversations about it. So that's me thinking that, and it's me not talking to you about it. So
Mhm.
giving space for those conversations is really, really important because I've also seen people leave and they get the counter, and I think the counter's genuine sometimes. There's like, oh, we were thinking about this for you, but we didn't talk to you about it, and then it looks disingenuous. So yeah, it's having a vision about people being challenged and opportunities and giving them opportunities to grow, but it's more importantly having that dialogue so that conversation is front of mind for everybody.
We're coming towards the end, and
Mhm.
I would think it's good to give people three things to take away. So I guess what are the three mistakes or the three best things you've seen? You can take it whichever way you want, in those recruiting the best.
Um, I'm gonna have to start with one of my Alex Bond classics. I've been going on for about 10 years. Job descriptions are not job adverts. Stop using them interchangeably. They are not the same thing. Happened literally yesterday. We got asked to write a proposal for a client, and I said, "Do you have a job description?" And they sent me a link to the job advert, which was a job description, but was masquerading as an advert. Adverts are adverts. They are to sell the opportunity. They are to make something sound exciting. They are to attract the broadest possible relevant candidates to the job. So that means screening it for overly masculine language is a classic thing, particularly in text. We talk about wizards and we talk about rock stars, and that has been proven that women do not apply for those roles. So if you want to say that you're supporting women into your business, remove that language. That's just a lazy one. Also, putting a job description is every incremental element of a role that you need from a person. That is automatically a bad advert because you are going to get, again, female candidates tend to apply for roles where they have 100% of the skills. Men tend to apply when they have like 50% of the skills. So you are over, overtly going against more women applying. Um, we just know these women's stats better because we are insurtech women. But there's so many mistakes made in there. An advert is an advert, and a job description is a job description. Do not use them interchangeably. Um, you have to care about employer brand. That's the second thing. Um, and it's easier than ever to have an employer brand, even if you're a small business. We're a really small business. We're 5 people. I would say that we've probably got quite a strong employer brand for people in our space. I think people know what we stand for. I think that people know what we do because we're very visible. So the visibility of your people on LinkedIn, on at conferences is important. And if you don't think it's important, then you're missing out on the best talent. If you are a SaaS insurtech that sells analytics software, you won't be the only one. If you're visible, you might appear to be the only one, or you might be the most relevant one, or you might just be the most exciting one. So having an employer brand and caring about employer brand is incredibly important. And it also makes your recruitment costs go down because people are more likely to apply. You are kind of people know who they're joining. You've got kind of a reference point to say if you want to know us, look at this podcast or look at this conference, look at this talk that we did, look at these articles we produced. You don't have to be front and center with your face, and if you're not happy to sort of talk on things, you can write articles. But employer branded content about what it's like to work for your business, who you people are, what you stand for is super important. Um, and the third one is, yeah, oh, it's my other favorite tagline: treat people that are kind of potentially come and work for you as the customer. Um, I bang about on that all the time, and all of those things that we've just talked about kind of play into that. Yeah, a job description is not a job advert. All of these things matter. If you treat talent as a customer, that means look at your recruitment process and look at every single point of it. Where is your jobs page on the website? Is it easy to look at? Um, do you communicate about what it's like to work for your business? When people come into interview with you, are you giving them feedback? Are you explaining how many rounds of interviews are there going to be? All of these things are things that if you had a customer and you said, right, during this sales process, we're going to have meetings, and then you did not define how many meetings it was going to be, if you did not define what the process is going to be, that's what happens in interviews. I'm in an interview process at the moment where a client has put in 4 interviews we were told. We're now on interview 6 and we're not finished. And they go, oh, there'll be more. How many more? Now, this is me not managing the client very well, actually, but they did tell me as a fixed amount. But from a candidate perspective, when does it end? It's just a bad customer experience. And if you think about that, one, it makes people less likely to join you because they've got a bad experience to join you. One, two, it means less people are likely to come towards you to apply. And third, it's a small marketplace. People will talk about, oh, this is bad process, and it leaves a bad taste in their mouth. So treating talent as a customer at every single point in the recruitment journey is the most important thing I can share with anybody.
Well, thank you so much, Alex, for your insights. And I hope you haven't been too torturous, me taking over your podcast.
No, I've loved it. It's been good fun, and these are things that I've loved to talk about. Although I'm a little bit worried it was a bit ranty, but hopefully there was some good takeaways from people there.
I think there definitely is. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Rebecca. Bye.